I'm Julie Webb, a Senior Counsellor at Anglia Ruskin University, part of the Counselling and Wellbeing team, and I'm joined today by Shell Meads and Dave Barr to talk about mindful social media. So I wonder first, Shell, if I can ask you to say a little bit more about you.
Hi, I'm Shell Meads. I'm a third year BA Honours English Literature student, and I'm a course and faculty rep for the AHESS faculty.
Welcome. And what is it that interests you in being mindful about social media?
I think one of the really important things for me about social media is not only my own use of social media and how it affects me, both in my personal and also professional life, but how I reflect social media to my son. At 14, he's quite impressionable. So if he sees me engaging with social media and that consuming how I interact with people or how I react to the world around me, then I think that shows him kind of a negative idea that we're attached to our phones and that our phone should rule how we present our life. So for me, it's like engaging with what social media is, how it can be really helpful, but also the pitfalls that we risk falling into with it and how we navigate that as a person to make sure that it doesn't become a controlling instance of our life, but it enhances it where it needs to and it's distant where it requires as well.
So I heard quite a lot of questions about how we use it and also how it influences. And I also heard that word rule. Who's ruling who or what's ruling what, which sounds really important. Why do you think students might be interested in this topic?
I think university for a lot of students is their first time away from their home, first time away from everything that they are routinely used to and everything that they're comfortable with. And when they come to university, social media can be a very alienating aspect of their life because they might see things on there that they're trying to aspire to or keep up with, but there might also be things there that make them feel that they aren't quite aspiring to things that they maybe hoped they would be at that point. So I think it's kind of showing people that social media is a reflection of our lives, but it's actually not also accurate as well. So giving people the opportunity to say, it's there, we use it, we engage with it, but be mindful that it isn't everything and it can be good and bad, and you need to know where that line is and how your role in social media and the role that social media plays in your life should be balanced out.
And I'm wondering, Dave, if you just want to say a little bit about you and your role.
Yeah, hi there. I'm Dave Barr. I'm one of the counsellors at AIU, and social media does crop up a lot in the counselling room for various reasons. I also do mindfulness workshops on various themes, so from general mindfulness, also things like social media use, procrastination, compassion, various things like that.
And I'm wondering what mindfulness is.
The definition I like is from Jon Kabat-Zinn, where he describes it as paying attention on purpose in the present moment without judgment. So there's 4 aspects to it, really. And that creates an awareness. So it's a practice to build up awareness of what we're doing, what we're feeling, what we're thinking, how we're behaving, and what our relationship is with wider society.
So I'm really interested to hear where you both go with this conversation about mindful social media.
Why do you think we need that social media aspect? If mindfulness is about us, then how does social media come into that play that we need that external influence, I suppose?
It's where we put our attention. So there's 3 aspects of mindfulness, and I could divide it up into attention, intention, and the kindness again, the self-compassion. But where we decide to put our attention, so if we attend to what we're doing and what we're feeling rather than just letting the phone pull our attention, or the social media pull our attention in, I think that's where mindfulness comes in. It allows you to notice how you're being controlled or your life is being distracted from where you want it to go maybe, or how it's affecting you emotionally, what you're looking at, how the algorithms and the companies that are marketing it are actually exercising control over us.
So in terms of kind of what would draw us to use it initially, obviously you've talked about intention and attention, but if we're saying that draws our attention away from ourselves, do you have any experience of why people have gone to social media? If they come to you with an issue saying that it's negatively or positively impacting them, what kind of drives them to do it in the first place?
Okay, yeah, well, I think a lot of it's very clever design. So it's designed to give people the impression that they're connecting with friends, they're increasing popularity, getting likes and shares, even the way they use language. followers, that's giving them a sense of power even. They can find a way of projecting an image of themselves that they want to project onto others probably to increase popularity or to feel connected, some of those things.
So in terms of using it as an image projection, I think is probably a really key place to start with the kind of the positive and negative of mindfulness on that, because if we're projecting an image, the idea of projecting something, is it real? Is it not? We see a lot around, Instagram versus reality, I think is a key term that comes to mind for me. Is what we're seeing on Instagram is a snapshot of someone's life. It doesn't actually reflect the moment. So if you're talking about a projection of an image, how would that positively or negatively impact the people that you might discuss that with?
It's one of the things that crops up a lot in counselling is that negative comparison. So people tend to compare themselves a lot, and we talk about compare and despair. It often leaves people feeling very dejected and like they can't live up to what they want to be. And it's easy to get sucked into that, drawn into that you're not keeping up, you're not doing as well as other people, and you forget. I think you lose that awareness that it isn't a real reflection, that it is just a projected image that people want to portray.
So how do you think, if you're talking to someone about it not being real, how could you encourage them to positively put themselves out on social media in a more kind way to them? You mentioned being, kind to yourself when you're thinking of mindfulness, of how you're projecting yourself. Does it come from this idea that if you put your real image on there and you are honest in your projection of yourself, would that allow people to feel better about their use? If they were being real themselves, would they feel other people hopefully would be more real?
There's a real danger in that, isn't there? You've got to protect yourself online very much. So the boundaries become very important there. And that follows on from awareness. This could be on the internet forever. The whole world could see this, my future employees or whatever. And I know students are often aware of that, which is another reason why they present a false image, because they think, this will impress a future employer maybe. I think it needs restricting, we need to keep ourselves safe and put those boundaries in place.
And I guess what I'm hearing in there as well, Dave, you mentioned something earlier about intention, and that self-awareness, which is what mindfulness does, is to bring us back to the self, so we can become more aware of what our motivations are and what our intentions are. And then we switch that intention, attention grabbing. The phone's not grabbing us, we're grabbing it for what we're needing it for. It seems like that's what you were both kind of heading towards.
Yeah, that's very important. Yeah, because it's taking back control of the phone. Normally we look at social media in a kind of trance state, or mobile phone use, whatever it is, but especially social media. We're scrolling, looking for what's coming next and always looking for those rewards, dopamine hits or whatever, or something to get us feel something really strong. They know that gets the most shares, so they try, and the algorithm tries to get you outraged. So the phone, it's got all the power. It's controlling, pulling in our attention. And if we can use mindfulness, that increased awareness, to take back control of how we're using it.
Yeah, I suppose to kind of add to that positive aspect of social media, you talked earlier about connection with people. So certainly, coming from this pandemic era where technology was our friend because it helped us be connected, and now we're coming out of that but still remaining connected to family through it. I mean, I've certainly got older parents who wouldn't have learned WhatsApp video calling if it wasn't for that situation, and we can still therefore use that moving forward. You're giving that connection in real time with your real family, friends, etc. So how can people keep that positivity with their social media? So if you're looking at it, how can we make sure that that phone isn't controlling us? What kind of steps could we look at to say, okay, you've got this really good tool and really good connection, but how do you make sure that you stay in control of it and that it's not giving you those anger or those rages that you were just talking about when you're scrolling and it's kind of riling you up? How do you balance that with the positive side of social media?
Yeah, also with, like you were saying, how WhatsApp how in the COVID pandemic can be really helpful to connect us with people who you wouldn't otherwise connect with. So then I think it's a case of asking before you do something, asking yourself, is this something helpful or skillful? And in that case, it obviously would be. So, that's the mindful awareness. Yes, this is a really good way of staying in touch with my grandparents or whoever it is that you don't see very often, or sometimes the only way to keep in touch. So there certainly are positives with it. And I think mindfulness helps us to use it in a balanced way, in a more controlled way, so we can get the benefits without just being completely overwhelmed by it or feeling lots of negative emotion.
I really like that talking about the balance, because it is a useful tool as well, isn't it? And yes, it can have negative connotations, and we don't want to fall heavy in either camp. And I'm wondering, Dave, what would mindfulness look like around social media?
Ideally, you would want to have a bit of a mindfulness practice, a mindfulness of breathing or something like that every day. So you're developing the practice to increase your awareness generally, and then you can apply that awareness that practice has given you to your social media use. So when you do a mindfulness of breathing practice, for example, it's basically just trying to focus your attention on your breath, and every time you get distracted by a thought or something else, you just notice you're distracted and very gently pull your attention back to the breath. So there's no judgment in it. You don't judge yourself for having those thoughts or anything. You just gently remind yourself to focus on the breath. So you can apply that to anything, but in relation to social media or mobile phone use, yes, it's noticing when you've lost that awareness, when you're being pulled in by something or just dragged along by something as you are by a train of thought. So, and then you're just checking in with yourself again, noticing I'm not aware of what I'm doing. How do I feel now? How did that make me feel? What kind of thoughts am I having? And just trying to bring yourself back to that in attention.
So you describe there actually learning how to engage in a practice. There's something really important about that, isn't there? Setting time aside to actually learn this process. And I imagine mindfulness extends as well to not just meditation, because that can kind of push people away a little bit, because it's a lifelong practice in a way. And going for a walk, I guess we can be mindful with as well, if we shut out the distraction. So if your phone is often in your pocket, don't know, Shell, if that kind of, you have that experience. If you shut the stuff off whilst you're walking, you're actually engaged with the walk rather than scrolling on the phone as you're going. Does that resonate?
There's also a big instance for myself with, sitting and writing an essay, and, it gets quite complicated, and it's almost, again, like you say, you're not realising that you're reaching out for that phone, because what's challenging you in your essay writing is going to disappear, because you're going to look at your phone and you're going to scroll and you'll forget about everything, because you won't actually notice your phone either. So for me, you talk about turning your phone off. I put it on focus mode. There's a certain bridge of time during my day where that will mean that the only thing that will come through is if there's a phone call or a text. Otherwise, nothing else will alert me. There'll be no notification drawing my attention away. So kind of just giving yourself a break and saying, if I put it out the way and it's not going to shout at me from the other room to say, there's an email that you probably will just send straight to trash, but you need to read it now just in case, just turning that off and giving yourself time. And actually, if it's in the other room and it's not next to you, you're not going to get up and go and get it, because you're actually busy and you've got something else on your mind. But if it's right next to you on the desk, it's easy to pick up. So turning it off is brilliant if you can and you've got the chance, fantastic. Otherwise, just silencing it and putting it in another room so it's not calling your attention. Sometimes even if you just see it, it's going to call your attention even if there isn't a notification. So move it. If you've got to get up to go and get it, would you intentionally do that? Probably not. But if it's next to you and it's easy, then like you say, the intention's gone. You're just picking it up for the sake of picking it up rather than wanting to actually engage with it. And I think it's kind of brings us back to what you were saying about finding a balance. So, we are encouraged to use social media in pretty much our daily lives by everybody. As a university student, find us on Instagram, follow the SU and see what events we've got. So you feel the need to seek those accounts out to be able to engage with the university. So how do we find that balance when we're being told to go there, but maybe we're also in a place where we know we spend too much time? So how would you advise students to kind of find that defining line and stop themselves using it more than they actually need?
Well, I think you've described quite a lot of it already very well. Yes, I think it's really important to definitely put the phone in another room when you're trying to focus. Turn off notifications, because those sounds, it is like somebody calling your name when you're having a conversation. Yeah, focus mode and these apps and things like that, or settings where you can allow time off from it. That's really helpful, because you don't have to follow all those things immediately We think we need it all immediately, don't we? So we're drawn into that university stuff maybe that we need to keep in touch with. But it doesn't have to be instant. So we can set aside a time for when we're going to check those things, or we can just take time off from it. Either way. They've shown, I think, in regards to putting it in another room, they've done some research which shows even if your phone is turned off, but you can see it, it increases anxiety. That's how powerful it is.
So it's interesting that as an object, even without the social media aspect, like, you know, alive and breathing in it while it's turned off, for an example, even actually just seeing it would give you that feeling.
So the mindfulness actually is kind of twofold, isn't it? It is being mindful and present in the moment with whatever task you're doing and be focused on that. But also, if we are using social media, to be really mindful about how we're using it and what our intention is.
You know, why do we use it? That's another thing we could explore. So, you know, what makes us pick it up? What makes us scroll? Sometimes, like you said, it's because you want to break from your essay. You want something more fun or easier or lighter, relieve the stress maybe, or just a distraction, perhaps if you're feeling overwhelmed. It can be just a habit sometimes. It could be boredom or loneliness. We might want connection. It could be information seeking, which can be good or bad. Again, it could be helpful information. Might not be. It might be information we need for an essay or something. It could be just a sense of restlessness and it's something to do. So I think, yeah, there's lots of things that drive us to pick it up. And just being aware of those is a start, a really good start, where mindfulness helps us to notice what's driving us, why we're picking it up. And then underneath all those, there's probably deeper reasons, which is like the need for connection, maybe a sense of safety, meaning, giving us some sense of meaning. Comfort, it could be comforting. For some people, it's their idea of self-soothing. You know, it's the thing they do to soothe themselves, or an attempt to soothe themselves, and it doesn't always work because you can't control what you see, really, what comes up. That's the algorithms are doing that. Yeah, and it could be to give us a sense that we're being productive, because if we're not doing it, it might feel like we're just wasting time, not doing anything, and it might feel better than doing nothing. But yeah, it's not necessarily better than doing nothing. It could end up with you feeling, oh, I've wasted hours on my phone when I could have been doing something else, and there's another negative feeling. But you're going to get moments of joy with it as well, aren't you? You are going to get those big dopamine hits, and for whatever reason, it is going to give you positive emotions that can keep you hooked in as well.
And I'm curious, where would students go if they felt they were having a challenge with their use of social media, or they wanted to go and explore why they're using it, what they're using it for?
Well, they could get support from counselling and wellbeing. So yes, explore it with a counsellor. Very helpful. You know, there is some stuff available to teach you practical steps online. So if you really feel you have a problem with it, or if someone does, maybe try cutting down gradually, reducing your phone use by an hour a day maybe, or trying to limit a social media period to 30 minutes. And again, notice how that affects you if you feel different. I think even a digital detox 1 day a week has had massive benefits for people. They've shown that it's really good to reduce anxiety and improve mood. Also taking steps, those underlying needs like connection, trying to take steps to fulfill those needs in other ways, like actually meeting up with people, or maybe just sending messages or calling someone. We rarely call someone anymore, actually, I think most people. But actually having a conversation might be better than just posting messages. But yeah, get support from counselling if you're worried about your social media use.
And also, you're being very modest, Dave. I also want to plug your mindful workshops. So we run a range of wellbeing workshops, and Dave runs a whole variety of mindfulness workshops, which are well attended, and the feedback is wonderful from all of them. And they're quite specifically focused on some subjects, aren't they? Social media, mobile phone use, procrastination. I'm wondering for you, Shell, what you take away for students from this conversation.
I think one of the big things is, you know, like Dave's saying, actually, if you're using social media for underlying reasons, identifying those and taking steps into improving those. I think for some people, it could be an anxiety kind of issue that they might have, because social media, you're not having to present yourself in front of somebody. So kind of saying to students, if there is that underlying problem, obviously you've got the support of the counsel and wellbeing service, but also you have the peer wellbeing mentors as students. So from a student to student point of view, if you feel you're having those problems, try and approach them. They'll be able to either direct you to the counselling service and recommend what kind of place you can go, or they'll actually be able to support you in giving you something else to do. You say replace that social media time with something actually active in real time. They'll help you find that replacement for that kind of drive and need for social media. So kind of understanding your use of it and why it's maybe damaging or not. You know, we can't say that it is for everybody. A lot of people find a lot of use out of it. So kind of checking in with yourself, like you've said, Dave, and just saying, is there a problem? Do I have one? We might not, and that's brilliant. But if you do, finding out how you can just get support to get through it and kind of give yourself a bit of a breather and a break from the pressure of feeling that you've got to be on it all the time.
And Dave, do you have any takeaways for us?
I've got a couple. I'd like to say, first of all, as we've covered, it's not all or nothing. By applying mindfulness to social media use, you can find a balance and use social media in a healthy and constructive way. It really can be done. And I think with mindfulness, if you can develop a regular practice, that would hopefully happen in a natural way and you wouldn't feel so much need to force yourself to stop, because sometimes that's necessary, but it's much better if you can do it in a sort of natural way, just by increasing the awareness. More likely to be successful than forcing yourself to stop. Also, mindfulness can help you bring back a sense of control over your social media use rather than letting it control you. And we all feel better when we feel we have some control over our lives. And if you can just manage to pause before checking your phone and decide whether or not to continue, you're already beginning to break the spell and bring conscious intention into your actions.
If you've been impacted by anything we've spoken about in this episode, please reach out to the Counselling and Wellbeing team and make the most of the support we can offer you. Visit aru.ac.uk/wellbeing to find out more about our service and how to get in touch.